Today I'm going to be doubling the horsepower on my Polaris three-wheeler using just these three parts. So let me bring you in for a little bit of a closer look to show you just what makes these parts so special. Alright, so our first and most important big difference as far as performance goes is going to be with our cylinders. So this over here is the stock cylinder, and this one is off the Polaris Cyclone. So looking at these transfer ports, you might immediately pick up on some differences. The first thing I notice is the actual taper of the transfers. No taper there, big taper there. And then, it's kind of hard to tell, but the actual transfers themselves are substantially larger on the Cyclone. And then, let's give you a closer look at each of the ports. This is the Cyclone you're looking at versus stock. So pretty clear differences there. And then scoot these back. So then coming and looking at our exhaust side here, it is 42 millimeters compared to 39. So another difference there. And then also the actual intake ports. The Cyclones are much lower, so you get a longer intake duration. So it also helps with performance. And then there's some difference in port timing on the transfers, but I don't have a degree wheel to measure it. So. And then the intakes here, I'm sure you can tell there's a substantial difference in size. So the stock intake is 34 millimeters, and the Cyclone intake is 40 millimeters. So 6 millimeter difference. Also, I just noticed this. The sleeve sticks down further on the stock one versus the Cyclone, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, overall, it's gonna be a pretty big difference in power. Also, if you take a look at the exhaust shape, it's a pretty substantial difference. So this is more performance oriented here on the Cyclone. So you get a larger width at the top, so it's gonna get your exhaust gases out quicker. And then the stock one, it's very round and boring. So this is the second part that we're gonna be using to significantly increase our horsepower. So up there you can see our stock exhaust, then here's the Cyclone exhaust. As you'll notice, the expansion chamber is a lot more aggressive and it's shorter, like it's closer to the actual cylinder, meaning it favors high RPM. And also we can run an aftermarket silencer so it can sound cool. So this is also a critical component, obviously, because it's a two-stroke. So super pumped about that. So the last of our big power upgrades is actually the carburetor, which I'm sure a lot of you probably saw coming, and you also saw in the intro, I guess. But so this is the one we're putting on. This is stock. So this one is actually comes on all the 400s too. It's the Mikuni VM34, so it's a 34 millimeter carb. And the stock one is just a 30 millimeter carb. So pretty good size increase there. But that is it. So just these three parts, and that's all it takes to make a whole lot more power. So with all that being said, you know the parts we're putting on. I've got a ton of work to do on my three-wheeler to get it ready for this dunes trip. So I'm gonna start tearing into the three-wheeler. So the first step on actually getting this cylinder out is going to be removing this tank, which probably has one of the worst mounting systems I've had the displeasure of dealing with a lot so far. Basically, it's pretty simple on the surface. It's just those two bolts back there, and then there's two up here, one right there, then one on the opposite side. The annoying thing is those front bolts also act as drain bolts. So anytime you need to remove the tank, it just dumps gasoline everywhere because that's the lowest point in the cylinder. So unless you like dump it on its back, it's pretty hard to get all the fuel out. But luckily, I already drained this thing out, so we can just pull the bolts off. So annoying. You know, every time I touch this tank, I know my garage is going to smell like gasoline for the next week because it just gets everywhere. Which I'm sure I could, you know, lessen that to some degree, but I shouldn't have to. Alright, so now things should start moving pretty quickly. Ideally. There's our choke cable. The worst wire routing I've ever seen from the previous owner. Alright, I'm gonna get this carb out of the way next. We won't be needing that where we're going. Oh, that shouldn't be filled with water. That is not ideal. Well, you win some, you lose some. I gotta say, the speed increase from having power tools is pretty drastic. You can actually get stuff done in reasonable time frames now. Take off this motor mount. $12mm nuts. That's crusty sounding. Ooh, lost another nut. There's the shape. and condition of our combustion chamber. Apparently there's like a good one and a bad one. I've got no clue what I have. I presume the not as cool one. But anyways, gotta get our 4 base nuts. So now that we have the cylinder off, one of the things that I'm gonna tackle while I have a little bit more room to work in here is pulling off the oil injection pump. The previous owner bypassed it, and I don't wanna risk any damage that might have happened while it wasn't getting oil to it. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull it off. It shouldn't be that exciting. So I'm just gonna do that off camera, and then I'll catch back up with you whenever I'm putting the cylinder back on. All right, so the new piston is, well, a new piston, but anyways, the wrist pin clearance, I'm told on these 250s, is pretty awful. And I tried to just fit it in there, it's not working. So I threw the wrist pin into the freezer, and the piston is currently in the oven. So I'm gonna have to work very quickly, so that's why I'm explaining it now, because I will not be explaining it as I'm putting it together. The piston rings, just like on the 400s. Go to the 12 o'clock position. Or not rings, the C-clip. Ouch. Alright, put our gasket on the first time and not put it all together without forgetting. Not like I've done that before. Maybe. And make sure our piston rings are lined up on the pins, which they are. That means we can slide our cylinder on. Alright. Can't really tell which way this gasket should go. Well, I guess I'll just put the notch at the top. Good enough. Well, admittedly, I was gonna cut corners on my torquing, but I couldn't help myself. I had to torque them. So I went out and got a new torque wrench that will actually fit down to our base nuts. So now we can actually torque these. There we go. All right, now I'll be able to sleep at night. So I also went and picked up an additional head nut because we were missing one, and the previous owner put ones made of like Play-Doh on here, and it just stripped out. So ordinarily, I would throw the carburetor on first just so we have a little bit better access to it. However, I do not have our intake boot because I forgot to order it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and throw the exhaust on because I really want to see what it looks like. And I need to fab up a silencer mount for it, so that'll allow me to kind of get a head start on that. But I would say that looks quite a bit more cool than the stock pipe. I also took off our super crusty fork boots just because I figured I might as well, just so it looks cool for this trip. Then also I got the seat recovered. I just picked it up today. I'm curious to see how close this pipe is going to be to my leg. It's not too close. I have to like make a concerted effort to get my leg on it. Our pull start though might have some issues there. The new seat is very comfortable though. Also, I switched around our brake levers because if you remember, the front brake was broken and the back brakes on this thing suck. So I put the actual full lever over here. And I think it's quite a bit better. Yeah. Shouldn't be too awful. I hope. Famous last words, I guess. But I guess we'll see what happens. Eventually, I would like to swap that headlight for the one that came on the Yamaha DX225 because it sits like in that blank space right there, and then like paint it to match whatever color scheme this ends up being. But I'm worried it'd look too much like a Yamaha at that point. I need people to be able to tell this thing's a Polaris from far away. All right, we finally got in our missing piece to connect our carburetor. So I apologize, this camera angle is just horrible. Maybe I should have waited to put the pipe on, but I got excited. So here we are. Anyways. I already assembled the carb because I've already done one before on camera, this exact model, it's carb actually. And then if any of you guys are interested, I'll tell you guys the factory jettings for the factory jets for the Cyclone in the comments if you happen to be doing this swap. But anyways, let's slap this thing on there. Clamp on there. Oop, I think I bumped you. So I'm gonna do some zip tying to get these wires out of the way and pin up our throttle cable, and also tighten up our motor mount. And I'll catch back up with you when we're getting ready to start this thing up for the first time. All right, it looks like a bomb went off in my garage because there's so much stuff everywhere, but it's finally time to start this thing. So, guess let's see what happens. Hopefully this thing doesn't backfire like crazy, because it has been known to do that. Here, so I can put the choke on. Hey dude, I'll take that. Down. Screw, see if that helps anything. Make some adjustments, and then I will pick back up with you. Alright, I got this thing running, so now I need to handle the fender situation because our stock fenders no longer fit. So I have these black scrambler fenders that I'm going to cut up and make fit because I think they look pretty cool and give it a sportier look. But also I know that exhaust mount's heinous, so just give me some grace. I'm I'm crunching like crazy to get these things ready for the dunes. I'll make a better one later, I promise. But anyways, I need to clearance the plastic down in there where that bar sits, because that's where our seat latches. And I suppose I will do that real fast and then catch up with you once I get this thing fit, because I'm basically just gonna be making a ton of tiny cuts and checking. It's gonna be super annoying to watch. So I'll catch back up with you in a little bit. All right, these videos are getting really spaced out because I'm stressing because I leave for the dunes in the morning. But basically, I just cut out everything in the middle right there so my seat could latch down. And I built these really jank looking foot stoppers so I don't, slide my feet into the wheels, because I almost did that earlier whenever I was trying to drive this thing. Also, I forgot to show you guys what the seat on. So there it is, finished product. I think it looks way sportier than those old 80s plastics. So, boy, was that a sprint trying to get that thing together. I did it all in less than a week, and there's a lot more problems I had, but they're getting to be so numerous, I don't even know if I'll show them in the video, because it's be like 3 hours long. Well, I am filming this after the fact, so I can confidently say the swap was definitely worth it, because it is so much faster now. It's like kind of crazy. But if you're interested in seeing that, that'll be my next video, so stick around for that. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think of the swap, or let me know what you think of the plastics even. I think they look pretty cool. Maybe you hate them, so let me know on that. But that is all I have for today, so like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. But that is all I have, and I hope to see you in the next one.